Hello, everybody! If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. No one's joining me this week. It's just me. I'm here alone. It's early. It's Wednesday morning where I am. I am going to Gen Con today. Today is the day I leave for Gen Con. And I didn't want to worry about having someone else here and trying to book people, and Tom wasn't available, and so on and so forth. So at any rate, it's just going to be me and you, all of you. There's so many of you out there, and that's great. I want to hear your opinions as we're going through this. We're going to speed run the Death Tomes today to close this out. I've got a lot of exciting stuff I want to do in the coming weeks. Now that we have all these indices and we'll have some results and stuff like that from various games and tournaments over the next couple weeks. So I'm excited to see where we end up going, give some of my feelings. Now that we'll have reviewed all of the tomes, I think it's going to be interesting to take a look at them, especially now that people are actually getting some experience in and learning that 4th edition is completely different and they don't know how to play Warhammer anymore. So if you haven't yet had that realization, just wait, it's coming. So exactly, that's right. You all are my co-host this week. I'm here with all of you, and that's what matters. Hello, everyone. Good to see everybody. We're going to give everybody just a minute or two here to, pile in while I talk about stuff. In just a few hours, I have to leave for Gen Con, so hence why I'm doing this so early and why I'm alone. So there you go. But that's all right. Haywo's alone all the time. He's talking. He does it. Rob's alone all the time. You don't always. I don't always need Tom as a crutch or something like that. I suppose I can just sit here and talk. It's all good. And we got 4 interesting armies today. We're going to talk about Death today. I won't lie. Death is the least interesting Grand Alliance to me. It is the one I have personally the least footprint in. I have part of a Soulblight Gravelord's army, and that's basically it. I guess that's not true. I do have a huge Flesh Eater Courts army. I'm literally staring at an army I have right now off to the side of the screen. So there is something, but it's not something that I'm as deeply as invested in. But hey, I'm still got lots of opinions, and I did get moment. And I did get a lot of play and practice in with these beforehand. I played a bunch of the Death armies and played against them just to make sure I had some nice experience, so I could talk from experience and not just the index alone. But the reality is, Death has always been the least interesting one to me. I'll just say that out of the gate. I want to expose any potential bias I have. I think Flesh Eater Quartz is the one that probably appeals to me the most. But I really just don't like heavily recursive playstyles, and or playstyles that rely on lots and lots of models, and that's what a lot of Death is. Death is often a lot of models and a lot of recursion, and it's sort of things that I just generally don't favor as much. But that being said, we're going to make sure we yeah, exactly. That's right, Charles. I forgot I didn't have a Bretonian army. That's what I was thinking it was for a minute. I fully gave in to the delusion for a moment. And we all have our alliances that we like or don't like, or things we tend to favor. And for me, it's always been Chaos and Destruction are my 2 alliances where I really find my home. But hey, that's all right. All right. I think we gave everybody a good couple minutes to pile in here. So how about we jump into it, shall we? Why don't we get rolling and talk about these? Okay. Well, let's start with FEC. So, okay. First off, the battle traits. Obviously, everybody's already seen these. It's very similar to what it was in the book before. So you've got your noble deeds points still. You build up to 6. You have feeding frenzy. Where if you have 6 noble deeds points, then you start broadcasting an aura of +1 attack, which is pretty cool. But you can also spend those points out of the different people to do things, right? So the courtiers spend them to do to basically return models, serfs and stuff like that, or knights, depending on what's going on. Whereas the abhorrents spend the full clip, all 6, to basically return a half strength unit. Gone is the ability to then replace that unit back up, which is probably a good thing. This is something that could happen in 3rd edition, where you could come back at half strength and then the courtiers could pile on and bring it back all the way up to full strength. That's gone. And you still have your healing during your hero phase. It's only your hero phase. So pretty standard stuff, but there's definitely some changes in the way this plays from the past one, but thematically it's still the same. Okay. Your battle formations, when it comes to these guys, they're with Flesh Eater Courts. You did lose your Grand Illusions. They moved over to Usharon, but I don't think that's going to be that much of an issue, as I honestly think you will almost always have Usharon. Which is probably a bad thing, but here we are. With these guys, honestly, my 2 picks are pretty much Raise the Banners and Gore Splattered Hunters, or Ghoul Patrol and Lord of the Manor, I guess is whatever. The add 1 to the additional models returned, and then the pick 2 Crypt Ghoul units to fight. I actually don't mind Crypt Ghouls at all. I think in the new world of hordes being valuable and being able to refill and recall them, they actually can do some work for how cheap they are. They are in the world of getting a lot of wounds from a lot of wounds to point ratio. Okay. So it's all fine. Like I don't. There's nothing here that's like absolutely amazing. The Royal Menagerie is cute if you're the type of person who really wants to run the Monster Mash army. You've got a choice. It's a bad army, but you can do it. So there you go. Yeah. I think ghouls are pretty good. That's what it comes down to. So things that bonus ghouls are also pretty good. That's pretty simple. Yeah, exactly, Mike Thomas. Okay, heroic traits. Your actual traits are fine. Stronger in Madness is generally pretty decent if you've got somebody decent to put it on, which is really the question. Savage Beyond Reason would be good, but there's actually no target you're going to really want to put this on, given what it's going to affect. And then the Cruel Taskmaster, I just really don't put any stock in the rally bonuses for melee armies. That's what it comes down to. Especially in an army that already has some recursion. I just don't put a lot of stock into it. So there you go. So the question was, Ismail said, there's abilities that let ghouls fight after some heroes fight, like the Marrow Scroll Herald, sure, where you can like pull them into combat. If I choose Ghoul Patrol, can I do Marrow Ghoul? Yes. Yeah, you can, as long as they don't have Strike Last. Yeah, you can Marrow Scroll, again, both of them would have to be in combat, so you'd have to have the appropriate number of people in combat, but yeah, you can do it. Like, because it satisfies all the requirements. Okay, Artifacts of Power. You've got an ability to make somebody a priest. It's pretty decent. Your prayers are okay. Your spells in this are actually pretty great. We'll talk about those in a second. But your prayers aren't bad. Making somebody a priest for free is pretty good. So, like, Charnel Vestments is just solid. And the Heart of the Gargant is, like, okay, because it actually affects companion weapons. But, again, you're just not going to put it on anybody who it's going to be valuable for. When we talk about the hero loadout you're going to have, there's a reason why you're probably not using this. Like, realistically, you're probably turning somebody into a priest, potentially. And we'll talk about who that potential somebody is. Spoilers, it's probably some kind of crypt courtier. All right, your spell lore. Your spell lore is really good. It's really good. It's a pretty simple readout. Deranged Transformation is excellent. I mean, +2 to move and +1 to wound. You've got a self buff that casts on a 6 as your unlimited spell, which is great. Like, nothing wrong with that at all. Miasma of Madness is generally bad, so okay. Like, we can just skip that. It's pretty dumb and relies on rolling a bunch of the same dice. And the Charnel Feast is fine. It lets you pop some units back in and do a little mortal damage. Just having an 18-inch damage spell in your lore is actually pretty good. Yeah, so there you go. Your prayers are okay. They're not bad. Yeah, Weirdness says I love making my Ghoul Pope even priestier. I get that. I'm not sure I'd take the Ghoul Pope is my problem, but we'll talk about him when we get there. Your Unlimited Prayer is fine. It's an enemy targeting one that lets you then heal stuff in combat with them. It's not bad. You want access to it because it can be something that just makes it basically impossible for somebody like Usharon to ever die. Or potentially it can do a little bit of healing on your big multi-wound guys. But specifically what you're probably doing is using it to put it on a unit and then make sure Usharon just is always at maximum and he doesn't have to worry. Because he's not going to... Very few things, if he gets them, will kill him in one turn. And so this just makes sure he just always stays at full life, basically, depending on what you put him into. The Summer King's Favor is, again, pretty solid. It's a... you're gonna, again, I hate to keep saying this, but it might often be a target for somebody like Oosh, but it might not. You could also put it on your Archregent because he can actually do a little bit of fighting. And it's just a really good one. It's bonus. It's big pop off on the 10+ is really strong because it can just spread around a lot of Noble Deeds points. So, I mean, it's a big Noble Deeds ramp, which is what's relevant. The challenge to your prayer lore is everything is on a 5 base. So having that priest ability and going on the priest can be a viable play since you've got the +1 to cast. You'll definitely want to be hunting for places of power for the additional +1 to cast, or chant, sorry, apologize. Just because you really are, like, a 5 is hard. You're often going to take 2 rounds to ramp up into your prayers. And then finally the Charnel Conviction, which just gives you a ward of 5 up. I mean, it's great. Like, that's really, really strong, and the thing you're often going to be wanting to do to make your units durable because you don't have the most durable units. So there you go. So your prayer lore is okay. It's not a banger. I think your spell lore is better because I think both Charnel Feast and Deranged Transformation are really, really strong. Like, +1 to wound is a really, really strong buff. Your Manifestation lore is fine. We'll talk about it later. It's 6/5/7, so you have an interesting spread of casts. We'll talk about it at the end. I'll talk about Nagash here in Flesh Eater Court since this is the first time we've came up. So Nagash is 880 points in all of these armies. He's very big as far as, like, his points cost, obviously, with a number like that. Like, boy, 880 is a lot. I have played against Nagash. I haven't played with him yet. What I will say is he's really, really powerful. I don't know that I don't think I'd ever anchor him in a Flesh Eater Courts army, though there are armies I would think about putting him in. I don't think he would go in FEC for my money. I mean, Nagash is just really strong. He can completely replace a unit, not half of. He can replace put the whole unit back on the board once a game. He has a ton of casts and a huge bonus to cast. He doesn't miscast and stop himself. He still does a little bit of damage, but who cares? His Rampage is wild. His Rampage is get in a fight with me and you will almost certainly be dead, unless you're very lucky. And his Invocation is really strong. Like, I don't know what to say. There's no bad abilities on this scroll. He is an absolute powerhouse. I just don't think I would use him in this particular army because I think he's overkill and I'd rather use other stuff that's aligned better. That's what it comes down to. For my money, Nagash is perfectly viable in Soulblight and OBR, and I think that's the 2 armies where you'd use him. But that's for me. Oosh, the Big Oosh. Big Oosh he rules. I hate that he's like required, but he pretty much is. Let's talk about his regiment. So Big Oosh is 470 points. He can take a Flesh Eater Noble as well as any Flesh Eater Courts. So what are Flesh Eater Nobles? Well, it's basically your Courtier contingent. So your Crypt Honker, your Crypt Infernal, your Marrow Scroll Herald, your Royal Decapitator, and the Vargulf Courtier. Obviously, you need a mix of both aberrants and courtiers to make everything work. Some of your courtiers are really hard pressed to get noble deeds points, so things like that prayer going off on the 10 plus can be really strong for that. Yes, absolutely. Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf, yeah, 100%. Oosh is really strong. I don't know what else to say. At 470, he's a 2 wizard with a ward 5. He's very hard to kill. He heals at the start of your hero phase, obviously. The prayer will make him heal a lot more and generally keep him alive. He extends the big giant feeding frenzy out to 24 inches. He has a really strong rampage, like a really strong rampage, depending on what you put him into. Obviously, complete Garbo against things like ogres or giants, but, you know, okay. Against the vast majority of armies where you've got control 1 and 2, he walks into a fight and just makes everything strike last. So it's just really, really strong. And his spell is fine. His spell is fine. And obviously now having the Epicenter of Delusion on him, yeah, it's good. It's like, it's a very strong ability. It gives you the fact that you can switch it every hero phase. Moving to +1 to run and charge is really strong, so on and so forth. Okay. +1 save is really strong. When you had to make this commitment at the beginning of your game, it was worse. When you can do it hero to hero phase, it's really, really strong. Oosh is so good. It's hard to imagine an FEC army where I don't take him. Yeah, Wordna says, I had my Oosh down to 3 wounds, then he healed himself back up to full. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what's going to happen. He'll often take decent damage. He's relatively hard to one-shot, just because he has, like, enough wound and ward density, and he makes enough people strike last that it's hard to actually one-shot him. And then he'll just heal himself to full. So, okay. Also, I should state that off-turn prayer is really strong. Like, if he's that prayer that lets him heal is really strong off-turn, especially if you're already rocking some amount of prayer points in the bank. Somebody charges him, gets in a fight with him, or like somebody's going to charge him, you've got him out there. You off-turn pray so that if they bring him that unit into combat, he makes them strike last, heals himself back up to full, and then kills a bunch of their unit. Like, he himself is kind of a great porcupine as a center hero. He's very unusual in that way. He's just... I hate auto-include named characters, but he's more or less there. Because of that, the Abhorrent Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, the guy who was the classic terror of this army, I just don't think has a place. That's my personal take on it. Maybe you feel differently. Maybe you want to run a big monster mash. That's fine. Nothing wrong with it. He still has this big 6 mortal wound bite, which is cool. And it's not bad. The dude still has 3 attacks, and if you pop a 6, it's 6 mortal damage. That's not a bad thing. But, he doesn't really... He himself is just a singular melee piece. Oosh can do a ton of damage and also bring an incredible amount of utility to your army. Like, crazy utility. The Ghoul King is more or less a singular piece. He just wants to do a bunch of melee damage. He has a worse ward. He's really only like 90 points cheaper, and that's just not a lot in the span of this army. Like, there's no unit you can buy for 90 points. So, for the most part, honestly, I would take Oosh over the Abhorrent Ghoul King on Terrorgeist pretty much every time. I haven't tried an army yet with both of these big boys running around. I don't know if maybe that's a play, but it seems like it's too many big monsters. So, personal take. The Abhorrent Ghoul King on Royal Terrorgeist and Zombie Dragon for that matter, and the regular Ghoul King on foot can all take the Flesh Eater Court or the Flesh Eater Nobles as well. So they can all take 1 Courtier, which is good. You're going to basically take 2 Abhorrents as your main drops and then put 2 courtiers in there, and that's probably going to be your thing. This is an army that can go 2 drops, and so oftentimes that will be the end up being the play. The zombie dragon is you only take this if you want to do the all monster mash run. He's 380. That's fine. He's not good, but if you want to do the all monster mash thing, he gives all of your monsters run and charge, which is interesting because then you can redeploy and countercharge, which is fun. So if you want to play the all big monster mash FEC army, if that was your thing, because that was a thing for a long time in like 2nd edition. So the if that's still your thing, then you probably take this guy just for the cool run and charge. Correct, Nathan. They're not slain. You're setting up a new unit with half the models. That is the number of models in the unit. So it's not missing any models. There's no slain models. You don't like set up half the unit or set up the whole unit and then kill half. Gormain, Grand Justice Gormain is really good. His effects are strong. You would take him if you felt like a 3rd drop. I mean, like, I'm not going to go through everything he can do. The important thing about what he can do is he can point at a unit and give your whole army run and charge. So again, giving your whole army, as long as they're charging that particular unit, which is generally pretty fine, by the way. Especially if he picks like a big unit that's center massing their board, and then you can charge anything around that center mass. So again, off-turn redeploy plus counter charge is really strong anytime you can get at it. And he can do that. It's just a question of whether or not you want the 3rd drop for him. He's 120 points, which is relatively cheap. And it's a great model. It's just, like I said, it's a question of, is he worth the 3rd drop for you? That's it. Okay. He does do powerful things, and I think you could play with both versions of this army where you're 2 drop versus where you're 3 drop. But I do think this is an army where I want to decide who has the first turn. I really do. Given sort of your unit configuration, you don't have a lot of like really great choices round 1. Potentially. Is Smash Bat back? No, definitely not. It's okay. You can do some fun things. You can load up the Vargolf Courtier with some fun options if you want to lean into it, but it's definitely nowhere it is. Hey, Dino, how you doing? The Gore Warden. The Gore Warden's really strong. I like this guy a lot. He's 160. He can take a Flesh Eater Noble, as well as Serfs and Knights. And his ability is really strong. He can pick up and teleport and during your phase. He can teleport around with Morbeg Knights or Crypt Flayers. So it'll be Morbeg Knights is probably what you're doing it with, probably. Like, it's a very strong ability. Built-in teleport is really strong. In my mind, you're either taking this guy as you're taking Oosh and this guy as your 2nd drop if you want to run the like very mobile sort of battle tactics focused tricks. And so like, because he'll get you there. You can't take the flanks with a setup unit. But you can take somebody's terrain with a setup unit and then simply move and take the flanks or something like that. So, he's very mobile. He's carrying around very fast mobile units. So he really does open up a lot of battle tactics options, and that's why I like him. He's very tricksy. He's very hard to pin down. His move is only in your movement phase. Thank God it's controlled. But, he's still a wizard. He still does work. The Marrow Scroll Herald is a bonus hero. He can go in the other people's things, and I think he's actually going to be quite a common choice. He's 120. He'll often be a bonus hero you'll select, and it's solely because of the fact that he's impossible to kill until he goes into combat. You'll bring him into combat around the corner. And he can give, he has a really strong effect. His 3-up, he makes all the Flesh Eater Courts units in combat strike first. There's quite a lot of strike first and strike last potential you have in this army. This is another avenue with that. So, like, you have Usharon making everybody strike last. You can have this guy making everybody strike first. You can have a lot of off-turn run and charge. So there can very much be a play where you're playing a lot in your opponent's turn and killing them on their turn and just really shutting them down. And I think that's the way I actually like building the army. Hence why I don't actually prefer the Gore Warden as much, despite his ability. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what Warden had just said. He's a countercharge monster with a 3+ fight first. So, again, if you're going to go for the build where you're playing almost completely off turn, really, it's crazy. You can be in a place where a bunch of your army can be working off turn, making everybody strike last. You're striking first. You're charging and redeploying off turn. Like, it's command point intensive. And it really does benefit you to play slightly to the underdog in this army, so you go to 5 command points. Like, if you can sort of drop an objective and be 2 points down or something, or 1 point down in a scenario, I will say that is absolutely a strat with FVC. Yet another reason why I like having the choice of going first, because then I can see how many points my opponent gets and play literally to just underdog in turn 2. This is an army that will very much set you up to be powerful for the take the double into 2, be the underdog, and then break their back, and then when it's their turn, you just kill them. Like, there is a play pattern in this army, to be clear, where you stay in the 2 drop, you let them go first, they do whatever they do, you basically play to 2 points or 1 point under them, get underdog, take the double, absolutely smash them on your turn, like go in hard, make them strike last, beat the living shnikey out of them. Then on their turn, activate all of your off-turn stuff to make sure that you're running and countercharging or redeploying and countercharging off-turn. Make them strike last, you have a bunch of strike first, and then you kill them at the bottom of 2. Like, that's a play pattern. And it's very possible. It's expensive. You got to set it up right, but you can do it. Anyways, so yeah, the Marrow Herald, he'll often be a bonus hero. At 120, he's perfectly fine. I wish he was a wizard, but he can end up being your priest, and you can throw the priest thing on him, which is a perfectly fine thing for him to catch. Morbeg Knights are good. They retreat and charge, which is a very good ability, especially with all the run and charge I was just describing. So, there you go. No, Iron Stewart, I love it. I love the idea, but that is not a thing. That's silly. It's cute, but it's silly. But yes, it is funny that it works. They're fine. They're like perfectly good on the attack. Yes, their lance normally wounds on a 4. There's lots of +1 to wound available in this army, like quite a lot of it. So it's very easy to get them on like 2s and 3s or something like that. So, it's great. And then they've got a bunch of 2 damage attacks. They do a little bit of mortal damage on the way in, and they have retreat and charge. They're good, and especially since they went up to 4 health. The Morbeg Knights are 3 for 170, so you're getting 12 wounds for 170 points. It's not bad. They're very mobile, very fast. Retreat and charge is very good. Yep, exactly what the die is cast. You can retreat out, fall into your recursion range, recur back your people, and then charge them in again. I mean, for all the reasons retreat and charge is powerful, it's very powerful. It's always been powerful. It will always be powerful. Crypt Guard. Crypt Guard are honestly a skip for me. I'm sure that's going to be a controversial opinion. I don't like them. They're 10 for 120. I'd rather just have more ghouls. I know they can give out the 5-up ward. It shuts off commands and stuff when they fight, which is cool. It's very hard to keep the heroes I want to keep in there. I don't like having to worry about this little bodyguard unit. I would just rather spend my points on other things. I kept cutting them every time I built a list because I just had other things I wanted to be doing. I don't like things that want to stick to other things so closely, and make me play with weird little small bubbles. So it's just my general take. I just think I'd rather take more ghouls. The Vargolf Courtier is fine. He's fine. He's a cute little boy. He actually does pretty decent damage against infantry. He's a bonus hero. He's 180 points. That's way too many points for this guy. like way too many points for what this guy is. He has a courtier, but okay. Like he can catch the priest bonus. That can be fine. His end of turn ability to retreat is really strong. Because he can reposition very easily. And you know, he's like okay on damage. It depends on your taste. Like he's fast enough. He can like sit on a flank and be perfectly relatively fine as a sort of little independent operator to like run forward. But his like heal and retreat is a very good move. I would like him a lot more at like 160 or 150 than I do at 180. It's a lot of points for him, but he's not bad. The Cardinal, your Priest 1, the Abhorrent Cardinal. My honest answer is I'm almost never going to take him. He is a Priest. I'd rather just throw Priest on somebody else, like on one of my courtiers. Getting +1 to chant is really good. Like if he gets the bonus. The problem is you're spending you know, he's only 110 points, but you're spending those points and a drop I don't have. You know, to like to get this priest when like I'd rather just take it, build up the prayer points and go. And try to find places of power and stuff. But I wish the Abhorrent Cardinal was the bonus hero. He would be so much better if he was. But he's not. So, I'd rather just make somebody else a priest. The Royal Decapitator's cute, but going to be a skip for me. The Abhorrent Archregent is really good. Like, he's really, really strong. Like, crazy strong. This is my second guy. Generally, my two drops are Usharan and the Archregent. The Archregent's 190, which is expensive, but I still think he's really good. He has if you're going for sort of the kind of if you're going for kind of the Gore Warden setup thing, he can be really, really powerful, or just kind of anything where you're pulling a setup trick. He lets them move d6 inches, which is basically means they're back in combat easily without any kind of charge. And he has his own built-in recursion, which is great. You know, yeah, he just does it on a 3-up, which is very strong. He's also a wizard too. He's also a perfectly fine little decent fighter. And so, you know, I like that. Yeah, the Poppet, I understand. The Decapitator can pull like all the ghouls into combat, which is fun. I think that's probably too much. Like, I don't know that I'm running that much of the units of ghouls. I'm probably running like 2 strong units of ghouls. And I've got enough other like strike first or strike last that I'm not that worried about the pull in. But, you know, I really like the Archregent though. I just think he's really strong. I like, he's an auto include for me, and that's what's pushing out all these other heroes. So there you go. Is his recursion affected by Lords of the Manor? Yeah, it is. We can go back up and take a look. Where are we at here? There it is. Each time a friendly unit uses an ability that returns any slain models to a friendly serfs or knight units, add 1. So it's not triggered on a specific ability. It's just use a thing that does that. Really strong. Really strong. When you're doing 4 slain serfs or 2 slain knights, it's really good. Yeah, the problem, Stuart, is that he has to live to decapitate people, and that's the unlikely part of it. At any rate, the Archregent's really good. I don't know what else to say. He's probably your second drop. With the 2 of them strong centering your drops, you've got 4 casts, which is plenty between Oosh and him. And this is the issue. Like, if you're going to go to 3 drop, you've got to figure out what you're doing. Are you taking, like, the Gore Warden to do the teleport trick? Are you taking Goremain to do the off-turn run and charge trick? Or are you taking the Cardinal to get a priest? In my mind, that's the choice. If you're going to go to 3 drop, you're taking one of those 3 guys. Everything else is a skip. Skip. The Crypt Infernal Courtier. Still has the cute ability to add 1 to damage for the Crypt Flares for the shoot. It's a huge deal, Duff. The bonus hero thing is like it's a huge deal. I cannot state how huge a deal it is. And like I have a lot of thoughts on it I want to talk about eventually. Because it completely warps the way you want to build lists. All right. The Crypt Infernal Courtier is a bonus hero. He's 170. If you're gonna run a bunch of the Crypt Flayers, fine. You take one of these guys as one of your bonus heroes. It's perfectly fine. It's a perfectly decent little trick. It gives you some amount of ranged power. It's okay. So it's fine. The Crypt Honker. I don't like the Crypt Honker anymore because I think Crypt Honkers are bad. So skip. Flares are fine. What flares can do is pull people around. I don't know who they're like. Who they pull around is questionable in a lot of your constructions. But they can do it. And it's cool. It's a neat trick. Their shooting actually is pretty decent if they get the +1 damage. It's not bad, like as it is Ren 2. And if it goes to Ren 2, damage 2, it'll actually soften up units. It's not going to kill the world or anything, but it's fine. They're highly mobile. Crypt Flares are 3 for 170. And, it's I can absolutely see a build where you take a Crypt, what's this guy? I always want to switch these guys' names. The Infernal Courtier, sorry, thank you. For 170 and a 6-pack of Crypt Flares for 340, and that's like a 510 point pack. And it's fine. Like, I don't know that it's like a huge deal, but if you use it very carefully, it could be good. I don't know that it's going to be a common build, but I think there's nothing there. Crypt Horrors are skip now. The fact that they start at Ren 1 and don't get any real bonus damage is a big skip. Crypt Ghouls are amazing. Just take more Crypt Ghouls. It's a perfectly viable strategy. These guys, you can refill them very easily. They come back in droves. There's lots of ways to get them back. They are 170 for 20 of them, so you're getting 20 health for 170 points, so they're 40 health. They can make an absolute ton of attacks. They will get a rend as long as they're with, near a Courtier or an Abhorrent, which you'll do often. So that's fine. There's plenty, yes, they're normally 2 attacks, but they're very easy to go to 3 attacks. Again, they're actually pretty simple to put on 3s and 3s. And so, it's not actually that hard for them to catch all these buffs. You have an unlimited spell that gives them +1 to wound. There are plenty of ways to get them +1 to hit. They go to Rend 1, relatively simple. And crit auto wound is really strong. It's just a good ability. It actually manifests a lot of extra damage. It's sort of the equivalent of I don't know what's the equivalent of. It's good. It's good. Crit auto wound is actually very valuable, especially when you've got a sort of crappy base to wound. So at any rate, a unit of 40 of them will often be pooping out 120 attacks on 3s and 3s, Rend 1, damage 1. The fact that could also be striking first or make somebody else strike last is pretty cool. I'm really glad I have a ton of ghouls in my FEC army. I think I have 100 painted, so I feel pretty good. Most of the time, what I've been using is just 2 units of 40. I think that's very good, and I have no problem with that. Oh, yeah, Purple Sun will make them absolutely shred whatever they hit. Yeah, but Purple Sun is going to catch a nerf. The Morbid Conjurations is going to catch a nerf. It's too good. So I'm expect nerf incoming. Okay, I'm not building anything around any manifestation. I expect manifestations in a hole to catch a bunch of nerfs. Because they're annoying. If you haven't gotten in a lot of games yet, another thing that in a future show I will have thoughts about, manifestations I'm sick of them already. They are supremely annoying. The number of games I've been playing where there's just 5 or 6 manifestations floating around the board fighting each other, and I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Anyways, Royal Zombie Dragon and Royal Terrorgeist are both no. They're both no. I mean, if you want to play the all monster mash thing, have fun. It's cool. You can do it. There are little fun tricks. I'm glad they gave a viable build in here to do it. It's not competitive or anything, but you can have a fun time with your big bats. The Royal Beast Flayers are, boy, did these guys get punched in the face. They can't be reinforced. They can do some damage to monsters and shut off rampages. Like, okay. I never liked these models. I always thought they looked stupid, and I don't generally like Warcry models at all in the game. So, there you go. All right, let's talk endless spells. The Corpse Mare Stampede is fine, right? It's fine. It has some damage that it does, some mortal damage. That's what it's doing. It runs into the same problem a lot of these things do with movement and in combat range and where it has to end and because it has fly, and I expect all that to be FAQ'd and answered. So there you go. The Cadaverous Barricade is interesting because it has an 18-inch range base and casts pretty easy. The fact that it can shut off, run, and retreat, and it's a manifestation without a move, so you can set it up in combat with people. It's actually pretty decently strong. It makes for a pretty great off-turn cast because you can it's relatively low to cast. And it's pretty easy to just hit them off turn with this, set them up in the middle of their unit, and then all of a sudden they fail a battle tactic because they can't retreat, or now they can't run if they had run and charge and they were going to pull some shenanigans, or you just have their move speed. So it's a really good off turn manifestation. Yet another thing that's really annoying about manifestations. Setting them up off turn is terrible. They should not be a counterspell choice. And then the Chalice of Usharon is really strong. It still is. It always has been. It's really good. So in this case, it's happily not just dumping models back in anymore. But it boosts your control score up really strong. It's potentially very, very strong. And so yeah, it's good. Yeah, redeploy is a run ability. Yeah, correct. So they can't use run or retreat abilities. So when you set this thing up off turn, it stops redeploy. Right? It's it's a super strong off turn manifestation. Okay. Yeah, which is good. Because you're doing it in the hero phase, and basically you're setting up in combat with those units in combat range of all those people. So yes, they can just walk away from it, but you've shut off their ability to run. That's why I say I like doing it off turn. You've stopped, if you do it on turn, you can stop redeploy. If you do it off turn, you stop their ability to run because they're within it when they decide to move, and they move at half and stuff like that. So it's good. +6 to control score is just a crazy amount of control score, so it's a huge bonus. The Charnel Throne. Charnel Throne still does what you think it does. You put a guy inside it and they start getting noble deeds points. Okay. That's what's going to happen. There you go. That's FEC. Overall, really strong. Pretty easy to make 2-drop. You'll often want to be a little greedy and go 3. But, somewhere in that range. Very easy in the 2 or 3-drop range. Lots of good tricks. No huge rule breaking other than the fact that they have a lot of good access to strike first, strike last. And a lot of off-turn ability to sort of either suppress your enemies' run and charge or mess with their redeploys or stuff like that, as well as do your own redeploy, counter charge, run and charge, stuff like that, which does make you very mobile, which is good. All right, let's talk the worst army in the game right now, and by worst I mean best. Okay. If you like spoopy ghosts, boy, tuck in, folks. It's a good day for you. I'm going to say this straight up. Nighthaunt will be catching nerfs. There's just no way around it. This army is way too good. It is way too good. It is not even close. This army is #1 with a bullet. If people knew how to play this army if half the pilots of this army in tournaments knew how to play this army, its win rate would be like 80% right now. It is really strong. It is by far the strongest army. Okay. We've seen these before. You have Discorporate, which is really great for a 5-up ward. Why not? Why not just be ethereal? Yeah, like be better ethereal. Like why not be ethereal and get a 5-up ward? Sure, why not? Spoopy ghosts, zombies, absolutely. Look, let me just talk about the fundamentals here. You all can read what's on the screen, right? They have their different things. It has to do with when they charge, which they can do all the time, even if they're already in combat. They and they get to do these various things, like you can make people -1 save, -1 to hit, strike last, all of that stuff. Okay, it's incredible. All right. Yeah. So it's really good. They can charge all the time. It's crazy. Now, why is this army so good? Because I don't even want to talk about the scrolls. For a second. The fundamentals of this army are so good because they quite literally ignore most of the things that are good in 4th edition. Ethereal is so much stronger in this edition. Now, they still hate seeing models like that have tons of crit mortals. But like the fact that they shut off the vast majority of weapon abilities, right? Because by actual implementation, what a bunch of weapon abilities do are anti something +1 rend. That reads ipsum, that is ipsum lorem text to you. Okay. So that's good. Discorporate is really strong. Just going to a 5-up ward at will, wherever you want, when you need to. Obviously, you're doing it once per time, but you're doing it when you need to. You have really strong penalties on your turn. And I'll say off turn you're weaker, but on your turn you're a nightmare. And you have incredible mobility. Incredible. The best mobility in the game. Period. Okay. And that is solely because of one thing that I really hope gets nerfed hard in the face, and that is Deathstalkers. Yeah. Deathstalkers lets your entire charge all the time. So your army that can always charge, even in combat, now could also run, retreat, and charge all the time. So they can redeploy, they can countercharge. As an army, they just do this. Universally. It's crazy. Now again, all those charge-based abilities are your charge phase. Okay, but whatever. It's the only one you take. The rest of these might as well not exist right now. And it's a problem. Deathstalkers is crazy. I would cut off a pinky toe for something like Deathstalkers in my armies. It's wild. Like, this feels like it should be a Slaanesh thing. This would have been an amazing Slaanesh thing. Okay? The, like, mobile dancey army, but no, ghosts get it for free. So, there you go. It's the best sub-faction in the game. Yes. 100%. 100%. Okay. So, I expect it to catch a nerf. Like, the problem is, this army is such a tall poppy, it's gonna get caught. It's gonna get cut. We are in Nighthaunt, Doug. Talking about the best army in the game. It is wild. The spoopy ghosts are on a rampage, my man. Okay. So, there you go. The fundamentals of this army are crazy. By the way, we haven't even mentioned that they also can do a ton of damage, have good control, and recur like crazy. And so incredible mobility, immune to most of the special rules in the game that would kill them. Great defenses, incredible debuffs, unbelievable recursion, and really top-notch mobility and battle tactic machines. Okay. Your heroic traits. You can take the one that lets you bring back half a unit. I don't know why you would. You don't need it. None of your stuff's ever going to die, so who cares? The you can take Cloaked in Shadow. It's fine. But you know, Terrifying Entity is pretty good. Lets you use Aura of Dread twice. Or let's use Aura of Dread even if you use something else. That's the right way to say it, which is pretty good. They're all fine. So that's like they're all fine. Unlike this, like you could build to any of those. The artifacts, the artifacts are like, I don't know how to say this. The mildest part of the book. Boy, that is true. The difficulty of playing Nighthaunt is keeping the models from breaking. Yeah, they all get stuck on each other. Yeah. So that's fun. And so like, but honestly, most of the time, I just like the light chart. It's once per battle, but I don't care. It's fine. It's still good. Yeah, it's fine. It's just a big +1 attack bubble. It helps you bust people when you need to. You're an army that will often be on a big charge. That way you can reposition, get your units into fight. You'll eventually hit their strong unit and being able to then like debuff them to strike last and -1 to save and all of that, and then giving all your guys +1 is fine. But again, they're the most av part of the book, so who cares? Take the +1 thing if you want. All right, your spell lore. The spell lore is pretty great, as a matter of fact. It's pretty great. You have a self-buff incredible spell as you're unlimited, which is you get to pick Nighthaunt units. Now, they have to have 3 or more models. So can't put it on heroes. Oh, no. But it's -1 to wound. Cast on a 6. Great. So, yep, it's really strong. The ZK, can I ask what changed? Yeah, everything else got weaker and they didn't. And they turned off all of the special weapon abilities. And the amount of mortal damage in the game fell way down, which was their Achilles heel. Like, a lot of things changed around them and they only got better. Your Spirit Drain spell is fine. It's a Horde Buster. It's good to have one. And your Spectral Lure is part of your make sure your units never die package. So it's fine. But an incredibly good defensive unlimited thing just to make it even harder to kill your already almost impossible to kill units. Yeah, so that's good. Your manifestations we'll talk about later. We covered Nagash in FEC. I wouldn't take him in this army, so there you go. Lady O. Lady O has been in every list I've built so far. We'll talk about regiments here. So Lady O can take a Cursed Soul, as lots of your heroes can, as a matter of fact. Cursed Souls are Karn Wraiths, the Lord Executioner, it's that one, and the Scriptor Mortis. It's the Lord Executioner. That's what you're taking as your bonus hero. I'll just spoil that now. That dude is really good. At any rate, Lady O is amazing. She's amazing. Lady O is 300 points, which is completely worth it. She's a wizard 2 with a 4-up ward and a 4-up save. And her once per battle ability is wildly good. D3 plus 3 health worth of models back to every unit on the board. It erases basically any of the losses you've had unless somebody's wiped a unit completely, which is very hard to do. She minuses the control scores of enemy units by 3 while they're within 12 of her, which is massive. And her Grief-Stricken spell is really, really strong and has a really good range. She is expensive and super worth it and incredible and absolutely a thing I'm spending a drop on. Like Hundo P, she's in the list. Kurdos, nope. Allrock, he's cute. You know, he's cute because he can teleport. You don't need him to do this. You just don't need his trick. It's fun that he can be 7 inches away. It's cool. You're not gonna take him. He's not worth a drop. Let's talk about your other drop. It is Reignor the Grimhailer. It's absolutely Reignor. Reignor is incredible. He's very fast. He has his corpse candles. He can do little mortal damage to other people, but he'll likely just do it to himself. She has auto as Big Oosh. Slightly less, but in the same, but still auto take. I've never built a list without her, and I couldn't picture building a list without her right now. Honest answer. Latin. Reignor's amazing. Like, +1 to casting, and +1 to power level. I mean, like, okay. Sure. Like, I'll absolutely damage him to get that bonus so he becomes a wizard too. Like, yeah, okay. His spell is fine. It does some mortal damage. It's good to have mortal damage on a spell. Just because, like, sometimes you need to remove stuff in the hero phase that have you stuck up, and it can just be interesting. I mean, not for this army because you're always retreating and charging anyway, so who cares? But it's still good to have. His like Grim Justice thing is who cares. He does plenty of damage already with his charge +1 damage and crit auto wound stuff. And the whole army's crit auto wound, which is crazy. Reignor is 210 points. Again, he can have a Cursed Soul in any Nighthaunt. He's really great. He's just really, really good. Scriptor Mortis is a no. The sentence is too hard to play with. The Tomb Banshee is a no, even though at not a bonus hero. That's a definite no. If she was a bonus hero, maybe. The Knight of Shrouds is a no. Knight of Shrouds on Pony is a no. The Karn Wraith is a bonus hero, but is also a no. The Cruelgast Cruciator is a no. His +1 thing. Like, you can really skip hard in this army. It's very funny. Because there are just certain heroes that just really stand above. The Lord Executioner is actually really good. I know this is maybe a controversial take. But I love this dude. So the Lord Executioner, let me talk about why I love him. He's 150 points. It's a lot. He's a bonus hero. He actually has quite a good profile on the 5/3/3 Ren 2 damage 2. It goes to Ren 3 against heroes. And the reason I like him is solely because of his staring death in the face. And his staring death in the face is just really good. I like this army at 2-drop CW. That's the issue. And so, like, I just, like, if you can be 2 drops, be 2 drops. Right? It's just very, very strong. This guy is an amazing countercharge piece because the way he can fly. So, like, you kind of keep him huddled in the lines where he can't really be targeted. Someone charges in, especially if they're trying to bring in a hero monster into you. This is just the ultimate counterpiece because you countercharge him up over the line, and his stare is so strong. On a 2-up, he -1 attacks their weapons, and then if they're a hero, they also then subtract 5 from their control score. Okay? The reason I love him is because he's so amazing as, like, if you're playing with if you haven't gone +1 to hit and wound on your 10 ponies, which is what you've probably done, if you've gone for the bodyguard unit where they're -1 attack, having this guy behind the line to then jump over the top, countercharge, and then also -1 attack is crippling. Like, it's just such a powerful porcupine. It makes sure your stuff never dies. Like, you can just easily sap 2 attacks out of people, and then they basically do nothing. Right? if you don't have to countercharge with them, if they're just foolish enough to kind of bring him into combat, which you can also set up for, so they charge you and then he just does this, and he's the bodyguard, and then you're -2 attacking them. It's crazy. You watch like extremely powerful, hard-hitting units just completely, blip, just fall apart. If your unit is also under Shade Mist, which is very probable, they're just going to do nothing. They're down 2 attacks, -1 to wound, like, and all of that stuff is near automatic. And the fact that you're like on your ethereal, you can still discorporate, blah 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 blah. Like, he's really good. Dreadblade Harrows. Hello, best thing in the army. Like, I mean, these guys have to get nerfed, right? You put them in every army. Period. 2 of them for 160 points. Right now, you are paying 160 points for 12 points of battle tactics. That's what they are. That's it. Because of any movement phase, they can remove and set up 9-inch from enemy units. So, okay. This first thing is nothing. The second thing is everything. They set up wherever they want. Who gives a crap? Put them way behind the line. Then they go over. They take their land. Then they go over and they get you, take the flanks. And then they go somewhere else and get you an objective. And then they go somewhere and get you like center battlefield or whatever. Or the other death one that's like B and 9 inches away, blah, 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 blah. Like, there's a specific death one that these guys work really well with. Yeah, minimum 12. Like, they're incredible. They're almost impossible to... Like, yeah, this has to be changed to your turn. Any movement phase is crazy. So, yeah, as it stands right now, pre-nerf, they're one of the best. They are simply the best unit in the army. So, there you go. Take 1, if not 2. Guardian of Souls, nope. Definitely not worth a thing. He's just not worth a drop. Pyregeist, I've never played with. This is like the Warcry thing, right? I've never played with these guys, because these guys, like, did they just come out? Are they even out? I don't even know. I have no opinion on these guys. I've never seen them in play. I can't speak to them. Austin, you did miss FEC. The Spirit Torment as a hero is a big no. This army has way too many dumb little heroes that are drops you're never going to take. GGRs, the old Grimghast Reapers. They're fine. Yeah, they're fine now. Obviously, combat range is a big deal. They aren't even out yet. Okay, cool. Thank you, CW. I couldn't even remember if that thing released. I don't even know. So I have no opinion on them. Maybe they're fine. Grimghasts are like fine. If you have a bunch of Grimghast Reapers, they're 10 for 140. It's not like they're bad. You're not going to be like that ill-served by taking them. They can crit on a 5-up, which is cool and stuff like that. They're Ren 2 against infantry. It's all good. Like, they're good. They're perfectly good units. If you've got a lot of GGR, rock your GGR and feel perfectly fine about it. Not a bad unit. Chain Ghasts, these little weirdos, these 2 for 100 points. And you don't need them and you're not going to take them. Your basic Chain Rasps are probably a skip even at 10 for 100 because you just don't need them. Like, they don't do anything, and being on a 5-up base save is bad. Oh, cool. They just released separately last weekend. Okay, cool. Very nice. Cool. The Black Coach is really, really good. The Black Coach is really good. The Black Coach is 260 points, which is perfectly fair. And it can teleport around in your movement phase, which is awesome. It can do mortal damage on the charge. And importantly, it has this thing called Evocation of Death, which lets you call back your friendly, non-unique Nighthaunt heroes that have been destroyed. So specifically, you can call back like your Lord Executioner or whatever. If you're taking the Cruel Ghast or whatever, which there is potentially a build for that, then It's incredible. Like, because this thing can easily pick its fights. It moves far. It can teleport. It has lots of tricks. It can pick its fights and kill something. Um, and so if it does, then you get to just like replace your hero, which is crazy. It's just crazy. So even if your Lord Executioner dies, he will very likely come back. The recursion in this army is wild. The Craven Throne Guard are our little crossbow boys here. Yeah, okay. They're 5 for 100. I don't think they have a play, but maybe someone's going to tell me otherwise. I just don't think they have a place. Bladegeist Revenants. So your BGRs, 10 for 150. They're really good. They're stupidly really good. They're ethereal with a ward of 6 up, and that's all you need. The fact that every army in the game on a coin flip, like that Rend is nothing. People overpay for Rend. Rend is so expensive in this edition, and you just shut them off. Like BGRs can charge all the time. Remember, this is an army where you can just charge even if you're already in combat. So if this unit charged this turn is the most powerful it's ever been, because you will always be charging. And so you'll always be at 3 attacks, 3s, rend 1, damage 1 base, just for existing. They're very good. Units of 20 for 300 is completely worth it. Completely worth it. The Glaive Wraith Stalkers are still weird at the like 4 for 80. I don't buy it. Mirrormorn Banshees are a skipper for me. Their like spell ability is too close. I don't really love how it works. Spirit Hosts are no. Dread Scythe Harridans are great. Dread Scythe Harridans are 10 for 150 again. They can actually pull off that bonus to hit and wound relatively easily, depending on how you're fighting or what's going on. And they can really be difficult to lift, and they can make an absolute metric ton of attacks. So yet again, they can come in with like a lot of attacks on really good numbers, and yeah, like it's just pretty straightforward. They are pretty good. So yep, like them a lot. Hex Wraiths. Why are they the best cavalry in the game? Well, they certainly are. This is the unit you're probably taking. They're 5 for 160, an absolute steal. The Hex Wraiths are like really good. They're just really good. They have their charge +1 damage. It's very easy to get them on better numbers through various and sundry buffs. They have a control of 2 for reasons I can't fathom. The fact that they went to health 3, like all the rest of the cav, so now you're pulling 15 health for 160 points or whatever. Yep. Like, okay, cool. I mean, they're just really good. Your army list should basically start with 10 of these, and then go from there. Like, everything in this army is really cheap right now. It's so cheap. It is shocking how cheap all your stuff is. It has some of the best fundamentals of the game, and everything in the army is ridiculously cheap. I don't get it. Like, it is mind-boggling to me. I look at something like my points in S2D or my points in Ironjaws, and then I look at the points in Nighthaunt, and I'm like, what happened here? This army can cheat, recur, come back, do everything, be invulnerable, just break every rule in the game, and it's cheap as chips for all their unit. They get an incredible health to wound ratio with unrendable saves and, as an army, and retreat army-wide and run and charge and blah, 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 blah. And then Ironjaws are like just dum-dums. I don't want to get into it. Anyways, we're not complaining about destruction today. Hex Wraiths are good. So good. The points on these need to go up, like, significantly, and or other things in the army need to change, and or both. Okay, so there you go. So basically, like, if you look at the strong construction of the army in my mind, it's like the sort of default construction is Lady O, Reichner, the Executioner, some big units of BGR or Harridans or both, and then Hex Wraiths, and that's kind of your play. There's probably room around the other. Oh, and a coach, and then there's probably room around the edge for like some banshees if you want to pull some funny tricks or some stuff like that. I don't know if the crossbows actually have any play, but that kind of thing. Okay. Yeah. I agree. The Hex Wraith control too has to be a mistake. I have no idea why they. I have no idea why they have control too. The Mortalis Terminexus. Is fun. Like it's a fun little thing. Can get you set it up, gives you +1 to run and charge. It's cool. Perfectly fine. The Vault of Souls builds up and then can do its little explosion. I watched this thing work. It never did any damage. It would because you have to on a 3-up you actually do the damage, and a 3-up is like, it's easy to fail. So yeah, but it's funny. It's perfectly fine little spell, and the Reaper is okay. Like, sure, if you want to use the Nighthaunt lore, it's fine. It can be 2 or 3 attacks when it charges, which is pretty decent damage. Like, their spell lore is okay. Realistically, you're just gonna take right now. You just take Morbid because it's just better. I hate that, but that's reality. Like, you wouldn't take this. You would just take Morbid. Okay, that's Nighthaunt. Let's talk OBR. Oh boy. I need a friend. I need assistance. Okay, OBR. Look, man, I'm not gonna lie. I'm honestly gonna look to the audience here on this one. OBR is like, I have played against these guys. How many times have I played against OBR? Like 3 times, I think. And I like legitimately cannot form an opinion on these guys. I can't. So I'm interested, audience. What do you think about OBR? So like, CW, don't jump out. I need your OBR opinions. You've got strong death opinions throughout. Are you telling me you don't have? Yeah, I need Brendan here. I really do. Like, he was obviously the person playing OBR. I'm gonna give you my very, very uninformed opinions on OBR. As I said, I've played against him 2 or 3 times, and I just don't. I cannot form an opinion on them. So I look to all of you. Yeah, they have their little battle traits, where you're basically, in each phase you're using one of the 2, so that's fine. They can still do these things. And it's cool. It gives you a lot of counterplay. It is a very fun ability I've seen in play. It does make the thing very much feel like the army. The times I played against OBR, my opponent chose exactly the wrong armies for what I was playing. So he got like housed both times, just tabled by both of my armies. Let's see. They win fights but suck at battle tactics. They have amazing war scrolls but high points values. Very balanced. Okay. Very good. Let's see. I'm looking for your opinions, chat. I got to get your take here. I know what I've seen people playing, which is a lot of Kavalos stuff, like the Death Riders, and taking Kavalos lands and stuff like that, so they can pre-move and all of that kind of thing. So maybe that's the play. I mean, you have a +1 to cast base, which is always good, I suppose. So there you go. Your heroic traits, the -2 to charge aura is really, really strong. It just is. I have played against that. and it was a very much a thorn in my side. It's a huge bubble that can emanate off of some people. So that would probably be my take based on what I've seen. And then you've got like some control score artifacts and stuff like that. Or a ward of 5 up. All fine. With your spell lore, your spell lore has exactly the unlimited spell you think it does. It's the crit 5-up thing, which is good for reasons we'll see. It's a perfectly fine thing. It's good that it casts on a 5. Like, empowered Nadirite weapons has always been your thing. It's still a thing. It's still good. That's fine. Your Drain Vitality is a very strong debuff at -1 to hit and -1 to save. Obviously very strong anytime you say -1 to save, but it does cast on a 7. And you've got a Horde Buster, so it's fine. Yeah, this is very much a drop army, I'll say that. So, yeah, that's a challenge. Like, you definitely have, like, drops is a thing here. I could see taking Nagash in this army, I'll say that. He's pretty strong here. Being able to recall a big unit of Death Riders is really strong completely. Like, 10 Death Riders is hard to lift. Being able to set those 10 Death Riders back up on the table is crazy. So, yep. Catacross lost a lot of utility, but he, still has some perfectly fine stuff. He's got longer range for his Relentless Discipline, which is nice. He can still shut off command points, which can be game breaking if you roll the 5-up. He gives everybody else control scores, and he still gives a bunch of people +1 to save, which is really good. And he's still a hard dude to kill at a 3-up, 6-up with 20 health. So, he's definitely not in the auto-take world at 500 points. He can take a Legion Subcommander, which the only Legion Subcommander you have is the Liege Cavalos, but it's nice that the Liege Cavalos can fit in there. That being said, other people can take the Legion Subcommander as well. Nagash can do it, so can Archon the Black. Archon is still a very powerful caster who's very mobile. He's Wizard 3. And, he still has, like, Curse of Years is still a pretty decent spell. And he shuts off enemy spells pretty reliably for targeting things that are near him. Though, again, unless you're playing Tzeentch or something, you're not getting targeted by spells that much. So, okay. And he has a built-in bonus to cast. Like, I like Archon at 410. I think he's pretty good. You don't want him in combat, so his Rampage is more or less Ipsum Lorem text, but he's a trip cast wizard. So, it's cool. Okay. Arch Cavalos Xantos. Somebody is going to have to give me a read on this guy. Because I don't know why I would take this guy ever. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody want to defend this guy? To me, this guy is a no. But, okay. Vok Morton. Vok Morton is a wizard too, which is very funny. But he's 190 points. His Voice of Nagash ability is truly unique. Like, it is I've got to pause on this guy for just a moment because of that ability being so unique. Okay. Cool. All right. That was my read too. Sep, so I'm glad to hear it. The fact, so he gets to, once per battle, he gets to pick an enemy unit, and for the rest of the turn, okay, this is any hero phase, so you can do it off turn, obviously, right? And he's got to be pretty close to him. For the rest of the turn, any non-fight core ability actually costs them a command point for the target to use. That is so wild. He's got to be really close, but the fact that all of a sudden everything that says core, so like move, and charge, right? Now cost a command point for that unit to use is unbelievably crippling. I think this guy might be actually sneakily worth it. Like, he has a drop on his own, and that's the question. But man, that's almost like a Be'lakor Dark Master level ability. It's not as good. Let's not kid ourselves. But it's basically a time walk. In true Magic fashion, that is basically a time walk. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. His spell, by the way, is like fine. It's fine. But that like mini Dark Master ability, exactly. Want to move? That's a CP. Want to shoot? That's a CP. Want to charge? That's a CP. Right? Like, it is wild. That is, I don't know. I don't know what to think about Vogue Mortian. As a double caster with that backbreaker of an ability, I think he might be worth it. Like, that is such a cheat. I rate units by how much they break the expectations of the game rules and how much they can stop your opponent from achieving their goals. I just picture them like calling a battle tactic to like have some unit, like their obvious hammer, go kill and fight something. And then at the end of their hero phase, when you're using your abilities, you're like, boom, Voice of Nagash. They just failed that battle tactic. Like, so yeah, I don't know. There you go. Okay. The Bone Shaper, he's still the Healy guy. He can put things back. He's 140. He's a Wizard 1. He can have a Gothstar Harvester in any infantry. Okay. It's fine. Like, yeah, it's fine. The Ossifector, can give your Harvester, or your Morghast, Rend, but it's only on a 3-up. But he is still a Wizard 1. He is, what's this guy? He's 120. You know, cheap, if you're just looking for the cheap guy. There you go. Yeah, I don't know, Stuart. Like, I think that guy's selling me. Like, Volk Morton, I think, is in. Like, for the first time in this game, I think he's in. All right. The Soul Reaper, one of the best figures in this army. Like, this dude is so cool looking. He can pull people into combat and give them +1 to hit, which is a weird thing for a wizard to do. He gives them -1 to wound while they're in combat. Notably, it's not against him. It's just period. So, okay. It's a powerful debuff just for being near him, but he's fairly fragile, so... And then Mr. Walkie Walkie on the chair. He should be cavalry, not infantry. He's riding around on a chair. Apparently 4 legs equals cavalry. I'm pretty sure that this was a discussion. Okay. I'm sure. But at any rate, the Soul Mason is 160 for a double caster. And he gives it, and his spell, he has a spell on his thing that gives one of your units strike first, which is obviously very good. Yeah. All good points. All good points, Sep. Constructing this army is actually really weird. So we should talk just a moment about regiments. The Soul Mason is 160, and like all of these Mortisans have 1 Gothzar Harvester in any infantry. Building this army is actually kind of annoying because of like who can take what. You have more challenge in building this army than most people do. I'll say that. Because like getting your Death Riders in or your crawlers in and stuff like that can sometimes be tricky depending on who your drops are. The Tyrannic Court, no, I don't even know without that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that with the weird Centaur guy. Skip. Mortek Guard, center of your army, still can be 10 for 130. And they can basically set their passive shield wall. And, you know, they have crit 2 hits with their Nadirite weapons and can do that on a 5-up. They're a perfectly fine little center. I like him. I run either Soul Mason or Vokmorton. Yeah, makes sense. I could see either of those. I could see both and Archon if I was going to do 3 drops, or either of them and Archon if I was going to do 2 drops. Because Archon opens up what I want as far as my other units. That's fine if they're good. I don't mess with bone centaurs. So there you go. Oh, nice. Good summary, Diascast. I like it. In broad strokes, dangerously good abilities and scrolls kept in check by being extremely expensive points-wise. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is very expensive. Like, just to be clear. I mean, the Mortec at 10 for 130 are some of your most reasonably costed units, and that's still not a great wound rate or health to point ratio, right? Okay. But, they're decent infantry boys. They benefit well from basically everything. Can be taken in anyone's drop. There you go. The Immortus Guard are 3 for 200. This is where we get into all the really expensive things. They can give people around them a bonus to their ward roll. Okay. But then it comes back on them. The Immortus at the end of the last edition were an absolute terror. These guys are 12 health for 200 points on a 3-up, 6-up, making 3 attacks on 3s, rend 1, damage 2 with crit 2 hits. Okay. It's a good save. It's fine. That's the best read I can give on you. It's fine. Necropolis Stalkers. Look, I've tried to defend these guys before. I just can't do it. Necropolis Stalkers are 3 for 180. And, like, I really like their little quadrarch aspects now. I actually quite love the different abilities they can do. I think they're all actually really useful. The ability to dance into a control score penalty and stuff like that, I think, is really interesting. But damage 1. It's damage 1. I'm sorry. It's just no. That's it. That's where it stops. Like, I don't care. They just hit like feathers. I do not know how swords the size of a dwarf, then they're wielding 4 of them, are damage 1. It's crazy. It's a no. The Liege Cavalos can be a... I know. What changed? It just... More context. Latin. More context. I saw them in a couple more games, and they just... It didn't pan out. I was hoping the utility would be enough, but it just wasn't. It just ended up not being enough. At any rate, the Liege Cavalos is your bonus hero who can be a Legion subcommander. It's fine. It's fine. Like, he can pull in Death Rider units. I wish he gave them a bonus, but he probably doesn't need to. He's good. He's a perfectly good little boy. He's 210, which is a lot. It's just very expensive, but he's fine as a bonus hero. The crawler is actually pretty decent as a war machine. I think there is a 2-3 crawler build here. And, the Dread Catapult making 4 attacks on 4s and 2s, rend 1, damage D3 plus 2. Anti-infantry pushes it to rend 2. It's still got the crit 2 hits. It gives people strike last pretty darn well. Yeah, exactly, Sept. That's right. Yeah, like I did play against the crawler build. It was pretty scary. Like it's one of the few artillery pieces that still has that really long range in the game. It can get shut off really easy, so you do have to protect it from things that are going to try to get behind your line and shut it off. And once it gets into combat, it will just eventually die. But it can do a lot of work. Infantry is going to be very common, and something that's rend 2, damage D3 plus 2, crit 2 hits, yada yada, against infantry is not bad. The Mortec Crawler is 280 points, which is so many. It's a lot. But if you protect it well over the course of a game, it can do significant damage to enemy infantry, and that will be a fairly common thing. Or frankly, even a lot of enemy cav. Just still being Rend 1 is still fine. And giving people strike last is good. Death Riders are pretty amazing. They're your traditional heavy cav situation. 4 up, 6 up, they've got their charge. They can fly on the charge, and they hit really hard. Like, they're just a good unit. They're 5 for 180, which actually makes them pretty well costed in the span of this army. 15 health for 180 points. Relatively decently tough. Benefit from all of the different, your different, like, tactic stuff, your battle trait stuff really well. Yeah. Like, Death Riders are really good. Take a unit of 10. Yeah, like that's probably a good start to the army. They are very strong. The Harvester is the Gothsar Harvester can go into a lot of different things. It's 230 points and it's a monster. I mean, it's always been a monster, but it is still a monster. It didn't like become infantry or anything. I'm only pointing that out. It gets up to these bone tithe points. It caps at 6, and at the end of turn, you can return stuff back. My honest answer is I don't favor this guy. I think he's just expensive for what he is. Yeah, exactly. Right. That's right, Sep. Exactly. Death Riders are just really strong. My read on the Gothazar is he's just generally not worth it. There's a lot of stuff that actually wants to go hunt monsters and kill monsters, and this guy will go down pretty fast and easy to any of that stuff. You know, so it's a problem. Like, this guy lines up and your enemy has you know, like the giant kill bows or whatever, and you're like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. Like, it's just going to get shot off the table. So I don't generally like 10 health non-utility monsters unless they're really doing something, and I just don't think this guy does enough. There's actually quite a lot of anti-monster tech that people will accidentally have, and that's a problem. The Morghast Archai, so these dudes are very expensive. At 2 for 270, the Harbingers are also 2 for 270, by the way, just for the future. They are still infantry, so they can go in all the infantry subfactions. And they're quite interesting in their unique ability that they have a ward of 3 up against spells, prayers, and importantly, manifestations. That's actually pretty interesting because manifestations are everywhere. And so it's actually not that hard for them to get their arcane charge tokens. And they can hand out a +1 to the cast. Relatively straightforward. Yeah. But I don't think even saying that they're worth it. But it is like, if you like them, if you have them, if you want to play with them, they do good damage at Rend 2 or Rend 3 against monsters, damage 3. And it's not impossible to get your arcane charge. They can help you get some of those spells out. I like the Harbingers more if you're going to use them. Because they can benefit from the Relentless Discipline. They can charge 3d6. They still are Rend 2, damage 3, anti-monster. To me, I like these guys a lot better. They're just much more straightforward in their application. They're still very fragile. It's, 12 health for 270 points, which is, wow, that's a ratio. But they're very mobile and can charge very far. So I 2 of them floating on a side is not a bad play. I really like the endless spells. I wish Morbid wasn't so good. I actually like Bone Reaper's endless spells or whatever their manifestations. Death Incarnate's really fun because it just sets itself up again. You don't need to recast it, which is pretty funny. It's just like you set it up and then it just kind of comes back on its own often, which is a fun ability. The Carrion is like a huge control score penalty. Its attacks are nothing. But it can just fly around. Like, you summon it behind your lines, just have it move with the army. And it's a huge control score penalty. There's a lot of control score play in this army, which makes sense as the sort of tactical thing. Yeah, I agree, Seb. Um, so I like the Carrion. Also, it's a really, really cool looking fig. Uh, and the Bone Tie Shrieker does a neat thing in that it subtracts from ward rolls, which I love because there's way too many ward rolls in the game now. And so minusing ward rolls is just really good. And the Bone Tithe Nexus is still what you think it is. You have to be careful with this thing just because it's so big and where you can set it up on a lot of the terrain maps is really, really limited. So it's actually often hard to set this thing up. And it will die if you get it way out there. Like, people will just go smash this thing to dust. I've smashed this thing to dust in every game I've played against it. Not the literal ability. I've just always had units like running along on the side or in the area where I couldn't attack anything else, so I just charged this thing and killed this thing. Because why not? So, yeah, I mean, in general, I would just take Morbid. So, but there you go. That's OBR for my as best opinion as I can give you. They seem like a very fair army. My play against them thus far, my read has been they're a very fair but tactical but fun army to play against. I think they're honestly in the sweet spot. I think they and Flesh Eaters are the two really well-balanced ones out of death. They're a fun army to play. They will very much challenge you. They are very expensive. You have to use your pieces well, but you have a lot of interesting tricks. So, yeah, there you go. All right. Last one. Let's talk SBG. I just played SBG this last weekend. Like, I piloted the army. So I've played both against them and have played them. You have the end of any turn heal for your vampires if they fight or kill people. You have your set people up in reserve, and then they pop out now from terrain features. You don't have grave sites anymore. You still have your Deathly Invocation, so you can heal 3 or return models with a health of 3 in any hero phase. That happens in both hero phases. And you still have Endless Legions, which is still dumb because you're setting up replacement units with half the number of models in the enemy phase. The enemy movement phase. It is so dumb. It completely warps the way your enemy plays. The mere existence of Endless Legions means that your opponent has to have enough units to have deck chair sitters on every objective that's on the board. The more objectives that are on the board, the stronger this ability is. Because your opponent will just be forced to abandon an objective at some point, and then you'll just take it. They kill you, and you just take it. That's easy. Okay? Because you can set up within 12 of a hero or 6 of a terrain feature. And usually the way the maps work out, it means you can touch an objective. Like, the way the terrain maps work, there's almost always some terrain within 6 inches. Yeah, we're going to do it. I'm going to do a little more than a tier list. But yes, tier lists that's base. We're going to start there, but I've got a lot more we're going to do. So, there you go. Yeah, so there you go. You don't have to deploy them near your heroes. You can deploy them within 6 or wholly within 6 inches of a terrain feature. Yeah, it's really good. That's why. That's how it warps the entire play. Because if you use, like, I have played with the standard terrain maps every time I've played, because I want to play the scenarios how GW intends them, as it were. We always use the exact standard terrain map, set up everything accordingly. And basically, you know, you can always just get these. My opponent this weekend had to, like, have deck chair sitters on. Fortunately, he was playing Sylvaneth and had extra units that he could just deck chair sit with. But he had to deck chair sit on every single objective. So this is one of the armies I really hate playing against. Like, I know you said that, Jared. I really hate playing against this army. It's everything I hate in an army. It recurs all the time. It heals all the time. It does all this dumb off-turn crap with setting up units. It really drives me crazy. Like, I hate having to warp my entire battle strategy around their 3 abilities. Okay. Their battle formations, you know, horror unending is fine, but it's not actually mostly necessary. you're very rarely going to need to pick 4 units, let alone all 3. I really like Bacchanal of Blood. +1 to cast is really good when you're out of combat, and +1 to wound on the charge is also really good. The Death Stench thing is fine. It only works. The pylon is only when you're in combat. If you really love your skeletons, is CW back yet? If you really love your skeletons, then that can be a very good ability for your death rattle stuff. Okay. Traits. I love the Lash of the Sire. I think it's really good. Being able to move people in your hero phase is just really strong, even though it's only D6 inches. I really like it. And yeah, that's what I would take. That's simply the one I take every time. What's worse to play against, KO or Soulblight? Soulblight. I don't mind playing against KO. It's fine. Like, they don't bother me. In their current incarnation, their last couple incarnations, they don't bother me. If I kill them, they stay dead. I want things to stay dead. I have to work hard with a lot of my armies to actually kill anything. So if I kill them, I would prefer they stay dead. I play armies that don't have recursion and work very hard to kill things. So, yeah, exactly. That's right. Like, Frost Sabers are just essential, right? Yep, Gen Cons today. We got a midday review. All right, on your artifacts, I like the Shard of Night if you're going to take some, like, Velazda or something, but you're not, so who cares? Because he's bad. Your artifacts are just generally a whatever. Like, sure, it doesn't matter. They're generally whatever. You take whichever one you like. Take the Amulet of Screams and play a fun game. Your lore is okay at best. You have a silly Horde Breaker as your main spell, as your unlimited spell, which is a terrible unlimited spell on a freaking 7. All your spells are on a 7. Honestly, I'm going to switch it. This lore is bad. The only reason it's okay is because you have a Strike Last, but it's within 12 inches. And you have a -1 to damage, but it's within 12 inches. Both are very powerful. Reread Orb. Okay, I'm looking at Orb, Devin. Pick an enemy hero in combat to be the target. The target has Strike Last. Yes. It's a once per battle thing. Are you defending Orb? Like, Orb is okay. Your spell lore is bad. That's the best I can say. The debuffs are strong. Like, -1 damage and Strike Last are very strong debuffs, but everything is on a 7 and so on and so forth. Yes, the Horde Breaker is also a heal, but it's a very minimal heal, and you have to actually slay models, which, okay, sometimes that will be very viable. When the all-cav, like, Death Rider or Varangard army shows up, you're like, great, this spell does nothing. I speak for the Orb. Yeah. Should I ponder the Orb a little more? Are you telling me to ponder the Orb? Okay. No, you don't. It's just you pick an enemy hero in combat to, well, yeah, you pick an enemy hero in combat to be the target. It's not in combat with this guy. I understand. You can just make a guy Strike Last. I don't care. People don't fight with their heroes. Like, outside of sort of an Archeon build or a Nagash build, which is funny to make them Strike Last, people don't fight with their heroes. Like, you know, you take, like, the Nighthaunt build I just talked about that we went through. I don't fight with Lady O. I don't fight with Reichnor. I sort of fight with the Lord Executioner, but that's on a countercharge, and if you want to make him Strike Last, I don't care. He already sapped all your power out. He did his thing. So, like, most people will just have a couple utility heroes behind the line. But that being said, take Orb. Like I said, if you like Orb, go Orb. That's cool. I'm good with it. I don't rate things that target heroes that much because Most armies will have 2 or 3 heroes. Most of them will not fight. So giving them strike last isn't that... Like, people are going to do their damage through packs of 20 or 40 just face rippers. Like, you know, here comes the Otstep murderer. You know, like, here comes the Bloodletter packs, the Skull Reaper packs, the bunch of brutes, the 10 Hex Race, the 10 Death Riders, the 20 Blade Geist Revenants. Like, that's what's gonna kill people. And, like, I don't... Making the dude who's 5 attacks on 3s, 1/1 strike last, I'm not... I don't know if that's winning the game. It's neat. It's a neat ability. Okay. I think Nagash can play in this army. I think he's quite good in this army. It's very expensive at 880, but he's fine. We're going to have to really go through some of these guys because we need to get moving. Manfred. Yeah, Manfred's good. Like, he's pretty good. He can make a redeploy, move people into combat. Which is just crazy strong. He can bonus your Death Rattle and Deadwalker guys. His spell is, like, okay at best, and he can strike first pretty easily. He's good. Manfred is 410. He's very, very expensive, but he can take anything in his regiment. By the way, you have this, like, Virkos retainer thing going on, which is basically all of the people out of Curse City. Prince Vorderai, if you want to play the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, you're going to take Prince Vorderai. Because the normal Velazda is Garbo. He has a spell that gives him strike first. He lets you play the role-playing game, level up with your Blood Knights and stuff like that. Prince Vorderai is 480. He is wildly expensive, but if you want to do the Velazda with the Blood Knight thing, like, okay, that's fine. I agree. White Knights should be sub-heroes. Neferata is fine. She's fine. Neffy is okay at 460. She has the deployment thing that lets people normal move before the game, which is really good. That's a rule break. She's a big bubble of -1 to hit. Oh, I guess. Small bubble of -1 to hit. I mean, whatever. It's 6 inches off her base. It's not terrible. And she has a perfectly fine spell in Dark Mist. She's okay. I'd probably take Manfred over Neffy. The Lukavai, the named mother of nightmares, still subtracts Rend and is fine. She has no other abilities. Luca is 320 and probably a skip. But, you know, it's okay. Yes, her deploy has to be Death Rattle Infantry or Deadwalker's Infantry. If it worked on Cav, it would be really, really good. But still, getting your boys out there early can be fine. The Vangorian Lord also does the thing, the -1 Rend thing, which is fine. But in a world where your heroes are really tapped, he's probably a skip. Radikar the Wolf, you can only take him or Radikar the Beast. And I don't like the little guy on foot. I do like Radikar the Beast quite a lot. He is not that expensive at 350. I mean, everything in this army is kind of expensive for your heroes. Yeah, Vorderai is old sub-faction, just better. I agree. Like, if you want to do the old sub-faction, if you want to play the Knights and stuff, he's your pick. I like Radikar. I've used this guy. I actually had a lot of fun with him. He can heal pretty effectively, obviously. And he can bonus out things with his +1 to wound. Is a pretty decent bonus. I wish he bonused himself. But really, I like him for his end of any turn move. The fact that at the end of turn, he can, if he's not in combat, he can move D6 inches and I can move him into combat is actually really strong. Armor of Night makes me very angry because the -1 to hit and wound is a great thing. but it only works for the rest of the turn. It's a good off-turn cast, especially if you're near a place of power and you can get +1 to cast. But I wish it lasted until the start of the next turn. That would be great. But Chadakar rules. I played him, had a lot of fun with him. He's 6 attacks on 3s and 3s, Ren 2, crit mortal. Like, he will absolutely rip things apart. The Rippin' and the Terran. I like this guy. He is a Wizard 1 still. Like, he's worth a drop to me. I'll take him. So, yeah, I dig him. Oh, God, all these, like, sub-heroes. So, Ivya is the outcast. She's a sub-hero. She is 190 points for a Wizard 1 that you're probably not going to take. Belladama, not a sub-hero. Belladama is obviously your big mommy in Virkos. She can take all of the Virkos people in her retainer. She gets the War to 4-up while she's near direwolves and stuff like that. She can add Ren to direwolves with her spell. And they ignore the beast ability. This is the other source of ignoring the bad beast ability. And she adds control scores. She's a Wizard 2 for 230 points. Okay. It's fine. She's fine. Gorslov is another one of these sub-heroes. Gorslov's relatively cheap at 120, and you're taking him solely to, in your movement phase, return 2 or 3 zombies to a unit. That's what he does. He's another 2 or 3 zombies back. So if you're doing a zombie heavy strat, you probably take him. He walks around with them. He adds back 2 or 3 zombies, or 0. 0, 2, or 3. Okay. Torgilius is stupid. Way too stupid strong. Needs to be fixed. He's outrageously strong. Torgilius is 180. He can use Deathly Invocation even if even if a different friendly unit has used it. That's why you take him. He has a good spell too, I should say. Torgilius is just absolutely the choice if you're going to take one of these little dorks. Like, that second Deathly Invocation is way too strong. Like, he's crazy good. Like, he's the little dork you take. It's wild. He's wild good. The little Virkos Bloodborne. These are the little vampire guys. They can't be reinforced. They're 3 for 150. They can't be targeted. At the end of turn, they can move, which is a strong ability because they have an 8-inch move. Like, if it was automatic, I would like them a lot more. On a 3-up, it's probably a skip. It's neat that they can't be seen. They're not fast enough to reliably get your down the flanks ability, and they're just a little too expensive for the 9 health you get out of it. Watch Captain Halgrim is a bonus hero. He pulls Death Rattle skeletons in. I wish he gave them some kind of bonus when he pulled them in, but he does do that. He sets the run for your skeletons to a min-4, which is a cool ability. The Varg Skier, no. He's a beast. He has this control score of 1. I don't care that he can charge 3d6. The Kasargi Night Guard, I actually love these dudes. So I played around with these guys a little bit. So they are Deadwalkers. They're Deadwalker infantry. They're 2 for 120, which isn't like the best ratio at 8 health to 120, but they are 4 health. And the interesting thing about him is that, or the interesting thing about these 2 little dorks is that they're control 3. And they and Radikar both have a 5-up ward while they're hanging out near each other. Which is actually really fun. And they hit like trucks. They only have like 2 attack space, but they are Ren 2, damage 3. I don't hate these guys, these Night Guard dudes. I ran a little pack of these around with my Radikar, with my Chadakar the Beast, and they did a lot of work. They were very resilient. I just could kind of heal them back on invocations, and their control is exceptional. The fact that a pack of 2 of them has a control of 6 and a pack of 4 of them has a control of 12 is like really strong. And yeah, they end up being 5 up, 5 up. It's not like they're that hard to kill, but they are Deadwalkers and can benefit from all the Deadwalker stuff. So it's cool. Lady Anika is interesting because she can set up in the enemy territory. She's got to be specifically in enemy territory, wholly 9 inches away. Again, I'd like her a lot. She's 150. I'd like her better if she has a 4-up ward, which is cool, but I'd like her better if she was like a wizard or could set up anywhere. There are some maps where the enemy territory is relatively small and there's just nowhere. Oh, can they not be reinforced? Sorry. Oh, the Kasargi Narcard can't be reinforced. I'm sorry. Thank you, Sep, for catching that. Yes, you're right. They can't be reinforced. 2 of them are 6, which is fun. You're right. They can't be reinforced. I apologize. Thank you for catching that. The problem is there's a lot of maps where you just won't have 9 inches away from people to set up, but it's cool. It's a cool ability, I guess. She can minus people save. You're not taking her. Okay. Kritza, same thing. The Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon isn't good. Take Prince Vordereye if you want to do this. He's the right answer. This guy's way too expensive for what you get out of him. He doesn't hit hard enough. He doesn't do enough. The fact that his his control score is minimal, his rampage is underwhelming, his abilities aren't that great. Like, at 400 points, he's not worth it. That's it. The Vampire Lord on foot can teleport around, which I guess is fine. He's like 160 points, so nope. Yeah. CW, I'm interested in your takes on some of these things. Yeah, exactly, Sep. You're exactly right. That's like Lady Anika could have some play, but it's really hard to set her up right now. I like Kato. I mean, he's a drop. You're probably never going to fit him in your drops. He's 180 points. He is a wizard 1. His spell is actually relatively nice, and his own little benefits that he can give himself are relatively good. Yeah, Radwolf is what a Vampire Lord on foot should have been. I agree. I just think that the Vampire Lord on foot is really sad. The Eskurgan True Blades, I don't know if these guys are any good. These are another one of the, can't be reinforced Warcry units. CW Sep, you got any takes on these guys? Any hot takes on these dudes? I've never played with them. I don't own these guys. I don't know anybody who owns these guys. So, there you go. I have ran Kato in an army and I liked him. He's probably not worth a drop for most people, but I like him. Leave your Eskurgan Trueblade thoughts in the comments or drop them below. Blood Knights. Yeah, Blood Knights are big, heavy cav. Anti-infantry and +1 charge. They are diminished from what they were, but they're still 3 health on a 3-up save. 230 points. If you're going to take them, take Vordereye so you can play the role-playing game. They can, run over the top of infantry, which is cool. And they have some impact hits. They're heavy cav, and they're good for the reason heavy cav is good. So there you go. Okay. So yeah, Blood Knights are fun. Vargeists, look, they're 3 for 160. You would take them to put them on the side of the board and go get battle tactics. The problem with that is that you have a better unit to do that same thing that we'll go look at in a minute. So there you go. Okay. The Bloodseeker Palanquin. We keep trying to make it a thing. If this didn't say once per battle, I would love this unit. I would be in on it. But this thing being a hero and being a drop and it being once per battle says skip. The Mortis engine, okay, which is, let me bring it. How many points is the Mortis engine? Why does these people have so many entries? 240 as a drop. Is interesting in the mortal damage it can put out. Yeah, CW, I agree. That was my experience as well. Like, I had chaff and I had control, but damage was rough to find. The Mortis engine's interesting. It can do a decent enough amount of damage. I still don't know if it's worth a drop, but it could be on the border for me. I could see a build with Mortis engines. I'll say that. It adds a lot from the Deathly Invocation. That's a huge bonus. The Reliquary is relatively easy to bonus, and Wave of Power is good. Sure. Oh yeah, that's a good point. With Nagash, that's a fair point. I hadn't thought about that. I never run Nagash. Boy, yeah, it hits max power really fast with Nagash. That's a good point, Sep. I hadn't thought about that combo. That's an interesting combo. The Coven Throne, controversial opinion. I like it. I would take it. I actually think it's really good. It doesn't do much in the way of damage. It's 270 points for a Wizard 1. It is a hero. It is a drop. But it has two abilities I really, really like. Which is, it gives out a ward of 5+ to Death Rattle and Deadwalkers units while they're near it, which is cool. There are different ways to get at that, but this is one of them. And it lets you double redeploy. Okay. So if a friendly Soulblight Gravelords unit wholly within 12 of this unit uses the redeploy command, you can pick another friendly Soulblight Gravelords unit wholly within 12 of this unit that has not used a command this phase to use the redeploy command immediately after the first has been resolved, and no command point is spent the second time. I use this in a game, and I found this unbelievably valuable. The fact that it's just any Gravelords unit, like there's not a restriction, like it has to be infantry or something like that. It just is. It's really good. Double redeploy is really strong. So yeah, I like this thing. I had very good luck with it. It did a lot of work, so I don't know what to say. Like, I was very happy with it. It's a weird pick. It's a very techie pick, but it does give you a lot of off-turn mobility. So, there you go. The Zombie Dragon is no. The Terrorgeist is no. The White King on foot gives +1 to hit, but he's no because he's a drop. The White King on Skeletal Steed, who's very tough. If you were going to run a bunch of, like, Black Knights or something like that, you know, sure, he can pull them into combat, and he gives them all +1 to charge, which is nice. And he himself is damaging enough. He's crit mortal, which is fine. So, yeah. Again, I suppose, I don't know if there's... CW, have you found, like, a skeleton-heavy build that you like yet? I want to know if that's a thing. I haven't tried a skeleton-heavy build, so I don't know if you'd use this guy in your skeleton-heavy build. Black Knights are pretty good, actually. I like them with the white, theoretically, because of the +1 to charge, and when they charge, their lances go crit mortal. They have the heavy cap thing. They're, again, at 3 health apiece, and 5 of them for 160 points. They're a pretty decent health to ratio with a good mobility. And they have crit mortal, which is nice. So, I like that. Well, it's a problem, Star, because a lot of armies just don't have a good plan if you go first. And it sets you up... The problem is it can really set you up for some really negative things, okay? Drops just does matter a lot. And the fact that your opponent can force you to go first, very limit your battle tactic options. In some armies, you just don't have stuff. In Soulblight, if you're handed first turn, it's not the worst thing in the world. But... you do have options to still score tactics, But the fact that they can then set you up for a powerhouse underdog double into 2, break your army, and then go is just really strong. Like, controlling drops just matters a lot. I wish it didn't, but it really does. Like 20 plus 21, 22, 23, however many games into the edition I am. Like, I've played every weekend for a while, often 2 games in a weekend. And what I've known, and it happened again this last weekend, I was foolish enough to go 3 drops. My opponent had 2 drops, gave me first turn. I scored 10 points. They played into that, got underdog, took the double in 2, broke my back, and then just won the game from there. And I tried to play accounting for the double. I tried to be careful, and it still wasn't enough. It's just that the 1 into 2 double is so powerful in 4th. I'm going to say this. Here's my controversial take, and this will come up during my like overview of the edition when we talk about stuff now that we've reviewed all the indices. It is often the right answer to take the double 1 into 2. There you go. Graveguard. Graveguard still hit really, really hard. And they can get a ward of 5 up, which is fun. They're crit mortal. It's good. The same problem with Graveguard is still there. They're 10 for 150, and they need a good deployment mechanism. They're still slow. It's the same problem as always. Like, they will absolutely truck people if they get into them. 20 of them at 300 points is a heck of an investment. If they get flat-footed and lifted, you're in trouble. You've got to protect them. You've got to use them carefully. You've got to make sure they get there in the right way. Yes, the double turn threat is still very much a thing. Okay. Your basic necromancer on foot. I don't know if I'm ever putting this guy in an army, honestly, anymore. Because I'm going to get my casts elsewhere. I've got other options, and my heroes are very limited. I can't imagine that, Charles. I really can't. Somebody saying they want to take first turn. That's insane. Those people are people who've played like 2 or 3 games of Warhammer. Is my 4th edition is my response to that. I really do. Like, maybe I'm unique, but 20-some games in, I never want first turn. It's awful. Your battle tactics are super limited. It is, yes, you can score 10 points, but you set yourself up for getting punched in the face. It's not that it's if you lose the roll off, you're done. It means that like you definitely do. You're right. You want to plan for both cases, but you want to play to the upside, right? And have the choice if you can. Yeah, I agree. You're exactly right, Catharsis. It's like you're just never taking the basic necromancer. The corpse card is funny if you want to run a heavy zombie build because it gives your dudes crit auto wound. Which is the only way zombies are ever going to actually do damage. Zombies are one of the last units in the game that still only have 1 attack each. They're still not going to do much, but it's there. Direwolves are perfectly fine as just a basic chaff unit. If you're taking Belladama, they can be quite useful because it can get rid of their beast ability. They can run and charge all the time, which is quite useful. They don't do anything in the way of damage, but they have a huge board control footprint. Direwolves are 10 for 140, so you just get an incredible health ratio out of them. How does underdog affect priority? It doesn't. You're fine. It doesn't. Like, priority is priority, underdog is underdog. I like direwolves. They're good. Big footprint, stuff like that. Zombies are still what they are. A pile of wounds for relatively reasonable cost. Like, it's 20 health for 150 points. They're one of the last units in the game that still has 1 attack each. They do basically 0 damage, and when they die, they do still basically 0 damage. But they're a big footprint. A big unit of 40 of them is still 40 wounds. It's very hard to lift. Having 40 health in a unit is just extremely valuable. So, yep. I played with both my army. I played a lot of zombies and a lot of direwolves, and both of them did very well for me. I was very happy with both of them. I was very happy to recall the units. Like, they play well into the basic traits. They can benefit from all the Deadwalker stuff really well. I like wolves. I like zombies. I think they absolutely have a place in the army. The core of Soulblight is still much the same, and I've been pretty happy with it. I also played a unit of skeletons and was very happy with skeletons. I'll say that. We haven't gotten to them yet, but I was very happy with the skeletons. Fellbats are what you take to go get your battle tactics. They're 3 for 90 points. You take 2 units of them. They sit on the side of the board, and they go and get you, take the flanks, and they go take their land. You're basically paying 90 points for about 8 points of battle tactics. It's valuable. It's fine. Doesn't matter that they're beasts. You only need them to have a control of 1 because they're going to be far away from everything, just existing. They can also very easily do the have a death unit in their space 9 inches away, blah, blah, blah. So, like, they can be worth 9 to 12 points pretty reasonably. Skeletons are fine. They do have the 2 attacks. They can actually do some damage, not incredible. They're, like, I don't want to overplay it here. They're okay. They're neat because they have the D3 slain model thing at the end of both turns, which I found highly valuable. It means you're almost never going to get the recall half the unit. But a unit of 20 of them will just kind of sit around, and unless it's hit by something really hard, will just basically keep coming back. The bats do look super great. They're very good looking models. They will just kind of keep coming back and rebuild. And they're like, okay, they're kind of great to be sort of a side unit. They're not that expensive. The skeletons are 10 for 100, which is perfectly reasonable at the exact 1 health to 10 point ratio. So 20 of them for 200 is basically a unit that, unless your opponent really heavily invests in, just won't die. And they can gum up and win an attrition war with their non like killer unit. And then Sekar, I don't know what to think about Sekar. What is Sekar? She's 260. She has a wizard 2. She only is hit on a 5+, which is pretty cool. She loses her agility if she uses her like once per battle thing. Okay. I don't know. I don't know what to think of her. She seems fine. I don't think I would ever take her. Like, I think your hero choices for my money in this are worth it are Belladama, Kato, the Coven Throne, Nagash, Manfred, Nephi, Chadakar the Beast, and Torgilius, who's a bonus hero. That would probably be like most of my, like, somewhere in there. There's different builds. You know, one of the great things about Soulblight is it does still have a lot of viable builds. And there's like a lot of different angles you can take. Like if you want to run the Blood Knight thing, take Prince Vorderai and the Blood Knights, and that's fine. It's a perfectly reasonable thing. You don't have as many of the fun tricks and stuff, but it can still work. If you want to do the like gum up the board zombies and direwolves and Belladama and stuff like that, can be very effective. Even certainly Chadakar in the mix can be very helpful. Yeah, so like all in all, I think it's a really interesting army. I think there's actually lots of different builds. Soulblight's is very fair to play against. I personally hate its playstyle. Like, I don't like playing against it, but that's my personal bias. Stepping away from that, I think it's a very fair army. It feels pretty balanced. Points are expensive for the things that should be expensive. You don't get a ton of stuff cheap. You have to kind of hunt around for your damage unless you're taking, like, you're I shouldn't say it that way. There are obviously things that are damage, like Black Knights can do damage. The Graveguard can do a ton of damage. You have some heroes that can do damage, but you're always playing a little bit of balance. You know, it's interesting. It's a really interesting army to solve. Like, if you really love list building and like solving the puzzle and have that Johnny mentality, Soulblight is an army that's going to be very rewarding for you, because there are just a lot of different weird sort of combinations you can put together, and you have to make real choices. So, yeah, I think it's a good army. Really, the only one in death that's out of the pocket. I think Soulblight's like the strong part of the middle, of the fair middle, but it's fair. So I think it's like, if this is the fair territory, Soulblight's like up here, Flesh Eaters are here, and OBR's like here. They're all in the middle. That's just kind of how I'd stack them. And then if this is the fair middle, Nighthaunt's like here. So there you go. Hey, awesome, very good. Trollson said the Timmy Johnny Spike episode. Well, I gotta go, folks. I gotta get to Gen Con. I hope everybody enjoyed this. It's a really interesting set of armies. Like I said, death isn't my thing, but if it's your thing, I hope I did. I hope I gave him a fair shake. And if you disagree with anything I said, drop it down in the comments. I always want to know, what did I miss? What did I get wrong? I am always happy to admit when I am wrong, because boy oh boy, on this one I do not have the familiarity I have with stuff um, like I do with destruction or with chaos. So drop your comments down below. Tell me what you think I missed. And hey, that sounds great, Mr. Morden. I'm glad I'm here to help you from quitting. You can do it. We can all do it together. I got to hit the road. Thank you all so much for watching this early show. Don't forget, support the channel, hit like, hit subscribe, do those things. There's affiliate links down there if you want to pick up a cool new painting light, if you want to pick up our new books, if you want to pick up your hobby supplies for your 4th edition armies. Click those links, do those things. Doesn't cost you anything extra, often saves you money and gives a nice kickback to the channel. It's the best thing you can do to support the channel, and it's really deeply appreciated. There's also our Patreon down there, our merch store, all of that kind of stuff. But at any rate, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.